No, when I slept last night. I had a weird dream, but I couldn't remember it. Are you kidding me? I promise this video is about a game, but before I can talk about it, a little bit of background is necessary. On September 16th, 2007, American private military company Blackwater opened fire on civilians and police in Nisour Square, a traffic circle in Baghdad, Iraq. After minutes of gunfire and a grenade detonation, the operatives had injured 20 and killed 17 more, including 2 children under the age of 12. Less than a month after what is now known as the Nisour Square Massacre, Blackwater launched a massive attempt to repair their public image. Their logo received a minor tweak to de-emphasize the crosshair imagery, but deeming this not quite enough, the company would rename themselves to Z Services, and a few years later, to Academy, reflecting their new focus on training military and government personnel. Despite this change in both name and direction, there was one more PR stunt in store, one last desperate attempt to save the Blackwater name. An officially licensed Blackwater video game would release in late 2011 exclusively for the Xbox 360. Better with Kinect. I'm not even sure where to start with this one. The fact that this game even exists is absolutely reprehensible. And every person who had a hand in its production should be ashamed of themselves. For once, I'm not saying that for comedic effect. If your video game is an officially licensed attempt to create positive press for actual convicted murderers and war criminals, you need to reevaluate why you're doing what you're doing. But I suppose that even in the usual, cheeky sense, the sentiment still applies. Because not only is Blackwater the video game ethically bankrupt, it's also equally fucking terrible. This was the first game in a good while I've sat down to review, and realized within the first 30 seconds that I'd be getting way more than I bargained for. I went into this fully expecting a by-the-numbers, 7th generation first-person shooter, with gruff military men playing hero and shying away from the reality of the company's foreign combat operations. And while I did get most of that, going into this game sight unseen meant I made one grave miscalculation. Blackwater is not a first-person shooter. It's not even a third-person shooter. No, it's a rail shooter. You know, Time Crisis, House of the Dead, the type of thing you used to see in arcades with light gun controllers. On the surface, that's not an issue. I really like rail shooters, but playing them on a gamepad is far from ideal. The genre really needs a light gun, a Wii remote, or something other than a joystick to work. And judging by the game's official marketing, I need a Kinect for the true Blackwater experience anyway. Watching Timmy Tactical here commit war crimes from the comfort of his living room had me sold, so after a decade of actively avoiding it, I finally bought myself a Kinect on eBay. When it arrived, I commandeered my partner's living room, wrestled the device into calibration, and after getting myself suitably dressed for the occasion, I got acquainted with Blackwater's motion controls. Just as the trailer would suggest, Blackwater involves pretty extensive movement compared to most motion-controlled shooters. You'll be jumping over obstacles, ducking behind cover, and kicking down doors with a few compromises for the sake of playability. Though, if this game deserves credit for anything, I was impressed by how well it tracked me as I danced around the living room like an idiot. It never completely misunderstood where I was trying to go, which is certainly more than can be said for other games that use the sensor. But just because it works doesn't mean it's fun. Let me reiterate something I said earlier. I like rail shooters, and by that merit, I don't completely hate this game as a concept. Strip away the problematic license and spend a few months polishing it up, and you'll have a tolerable, if bare-bones, rail shooter. At least, you would, if it used any other input method. I understand this isn't exactly the finest game in the Kinect's repertoire, but it does go to show how inconvenient to use the device actually was. I use my girlfriend's living room because the Kinect straight up doesn't work in my bedroom, but I can play Wii and PS Move games just fine. Even in a suitably large space, if you've got a coffee table or a pet, you'll have to evict both for the duration of your play session.
I can't go any lower than hello. I can't go any lower than this.
She thinks you're trying to pet her.
Pet the damn dog. Step back. It thinks she's me.
No.
The game has decided she's me. I can't move because she's in the way. The game thinks I'm crouching in the center of it because she's there. You're officially more qualified to fight in Iraq than Blackwater. Also, it keeps changing. It thinks I'm trying to throw a grenade. I think it thinks her ears are my arms. Okay, Ellie. I'm gonna need you to
I like that she just went and sat there.
So you just stay there for a second.
Calibrating the Kinect demands more empty space than most VR games, and the lack of any sort of controller means that literally everything, from menu navigation to combat, necessitates unwavering line of sight with your face and all 4 of your limbs. Shooters on Wii and PS Move did the sensible thing and left everything except for aiming to the buttons and gyroscopes. An interrupted line of sight with the Wiimote or Sony's glowing vibrator don't require a session of frantically waving your hand in the air to reacquire the link. But Kinect is a completely controllerless device. Other games like Ghost Recon Future Soldier handle this with gestures. And Blackwater's official marketing even hinted that they do the same. Early trailers depicted the player mimicking trigger pulls and two-handed gunplay, but that is so far from the truth that if anyone actually bought this game, they'd probably be able to win a class action lawsuit for false advertisement. In reality, playing Blackwater is more akin to pretending to be Iron Man. You just kinda hold your hand out, and the game automatically fires when it decides you've aimed at someone long enough. The only thing that even remotely resembles the gameplay trailer is reloading, where you lift your shooting hand and slap your elbow as if jamming a magazine into a bullpup rifle. You also need 2 hands to throw a grenade, but one of them is just held straight up in the air to signal the Kinect as what you were trying to do. These 2 gestures are the only ones that ever failed to register, and honestly, it wouldn't be a huge deal if the game had checkpoints. But it doesn't, at all. If you die at any point in the level, you start from the beginning. I wouldn't accuse Blackwater of being a challenging game, but I did die pretty frequently just because I didn't throw myself low enough to the ground. I regularly lost 10 or so minutes of progress to this minor slip-up, and while I put up with a lot of bullshit for the sake of capturing footage, I wasn't prepared to do it for this game. Primarily because Blackwater's levels are more or less indistinguishable from one another. If you've experienced one, you've experienced all of them. Every few kills, the game forces you to watch an unskippable cutscene of the generic Blackwater terrorists, operators, quipping to each other to signify who you're switching to. This is basically pointless, as the only difference between characters is the weapons they use. There is a half-hearted attempt to give the characters personality, but it falls flat on its face almost immediately.
Baird, I think these road trips are my favorite part of our job. Is it the sightseeing? No, it's definitely the quality time. Smash. You have a strange definition of quality time. Come on, Baird. I'm riding shotgun with a shotgun. I'm not sure if there's any more quality than that. Contact.
It wasn't long before I completely gave up on Blackwater's motion controls, so I switched to the 360 controller and it went about as well as you'd expect. Both axes are permanently inverted, so moving and aiming are awkward, disorienting chores. But simply by merit of having a physical trigger, Blackwater is exponentially easier on a controller than the Kinect. The only character that is still frustrating to play is the sniper, whose name I can't be bothered to remember, because you still have to aim near people and wait for the Kinect-style reticle to fill so you can zoom in and snipe them. But even with a controller, this game is still not worth playing. As I sit here writing this review, I'm struggling to find meaningful things to say about Blackwater because it's literally just screen after screen of clicking on people. There are no bosses, no new weapons, no real set pieces. On top of that, bugs are frequent and some sections are straight up broken. If you get an enemy far enough off your screen, they can't hit you. You can sit there forever, completely invulnerable.
Oh, so I died, but I'm still fine? I broke the game. Yeah, I broke the game. I'm dead, but I...
Despite the death of tube TVs and thus light guns, there are a lot of really fun rail shooters in 7th gen systems, many of which can be played with the standard controller, and even more use the Wii Remote or PS Move. Sin and Punishment, Dead Space Extraction, Resident Evil Chronicles, Ghost Squad, House of the Dead, Ghost Recon Wii, Galgun, Time Crisis 4, fucking Nerf N-Strike. And if you broaden the search to include normal first and third person shooters with motion controls, you get Call of Duty on Wii, SOCOM 4, The Conduit. Hell, Counter-Strike on PS3 supports Move. Why would anyone ever play Blackwater over any of these? The most interesting part about Blackwater is the company that made it, Zombie Studios. Zombie was responsible for a pretty wide gamut of games over their 21-year existence. The name most would recognize would be the Spec Ops franchise. Except for the one good Spec Ops game, The Line, they had nothing to do with that one. Zombie also worked on a Rainbow Six expansion, the Saw games, and more recently Blacklight Tango Down and Retribution. Not long after shipping Blackwater, Zombie also created an awful Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles plug-and-play game, which means that the same company worked on a property aimed at kids and a property that aims at kids. Frankly, there is no reason anyone should ever play Blackwater. It's a boring, broken game with awful motion controls, no checkpoints, and to top it all off, it was a direct attempt to create positive press for a PMC that murdered innocent people and got away with it. Blackwater is an irredeemable, inexcusable video game. As such, it will join the pile. If only because selling it or throwing it away means that someone might chance across it one day and play it for themselves. This game will remain in my possession for the rest of its life, so that it may do no more harm.